Hi, folks. So today we're going to cover a very simple topic on the Juniper Mist portal. We're going to talk about STP Edge functionality. So a little bit of background on what is STP Edge. It's a feature within our switches. In this case, we're going to be configuring the EX version of switch that's going to be completely managed by the cloud. So we're going to do everything in the cloud portal. And we're going to enable a feature called STP Edge that's going to allow us to protect ourselves from end users plugging in switches inadvertently and possibly causing loops to our network. So STP Edge is similar to a feature called BPDU guard. So when we have STP Edge enabled, which it is disabled by default, if a device is plugged in that sends out a BPDU, a bridge protocol data unit, which is something that switches use to communicate between each other for spanning tree purposes. So if we see a BPDU come in, it indicates that we have another switch plugged in. There's use cases, obviously, when you don't want anybody to be able to plug a switch into your network. And BPDU guard or STP Edge will allow you to protect yourself. And what it'll do is it will disable the port if it sees a BPDU packet come in right away, and then that port will stay disabled until you enable it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to set this feature up through various means. We're going to create a template here. This is a organization template. We can also do a template for a site level as well. So this will be something that we can set up multiple ports on multiple switches all at once. So it's going to allow us to automate our network. We also will be able to do this by switch as well if we want to do that as an override. So port profiles is where we're going to set up STP Edge. So we're going to click add a port profile down under port profile. So this is just going to be, we're just going to call this an edge port. So it's going to be a user-defined role. You can also change the port profile for the system-defined roles. But in this case, we're just going to do this really simply. So I'm just going to click yes on STP Edge, and all my other settings I'm going to leave the same. In your case, you would set the VLANs, set the tagging information, all that sort of stuff. 802.1x. Yeah, I can do a whole bunch of stuff here, actually. I do need to use lowercase, so I'm just going to call it edge port. I'm going to disable or enable it, and then I need to apply this profile to specific ports, which I would do within my port configuration if I want down here. But I'm not going to cover that. We can cover that on another topic. But basically, the port profile is there. It's not applied to any port at the moment. I'm going to save my template, and you see that it'll show up, and I can now use that template to push this change to and any other change to switches within my organization. I can also do it under sites as well if I just wanted to have a special template for a specific site. But let's talk about how we're going to do it on a per switch basis. So I'm going to find my switch here under switches, and I'm going to, that's not a switch, that's an end user, and then this is my switch. I'm going to go into my switch here. You can see I get a nice up-to-date view of what my switch is doing. I just have my uplink plugged in at the moment. So my switch has access to the cloud. It's managed. You can see down here I have configuration management is enabled. So I'm going to be able to do everything through the portal that I need to do. So in this case, I'm going to go down to port configuration, and I'm going to configure a specific port. I already have the port profile added. I've set it up already. So STP, Bounce STP has this port profile, and I'll just show you quick how I could add it. I'm just going to do STP Edge on, and I'm going to turn this STP Edge feature to yes. I'm going to save my port profile by clicking the little checkbox, and then I can apply it directly to a port. So there's a lot of ways I can do it. One of the most simple ways I can do it is by clicking on a port. So at this point, this is an awesome feature of the Juniper Mist portal. So I can edit my port configuration. There's lots of other ways to do it as well. This is probably the most simple and straightforward. So if I want my port profile to have STP Edge on, I can just click here and it will set it to that. I've kind of already done that, but I'll do it again. Let's just double check this. Looks like we're on Edge. You can see here the settings. I'm on default VLAN 1, access, and Edge is turned on. So really quick way for me to do this. Click Save. And in this case, it will, within the next minute or so, roughly, it will push that configuration from the cloud to the configuration on the switch itself. And if you're watching a switch via PuTTY session, you'll see that change actually take place in the CLI log. So what we're going to do next is plug in I'm going to plug in another switch here just so we can see what happens. So you can see here, we've waited, sometimes it might be a minute or two, depending on where we are at the polling cycle, but plugged in a switch, and I now see a BPDU error, as I would expect to see. So the switch port has gone disabled and is blocking. I can see here in the stats on this specific port. So in this case, I can click on the port. I'm going to I can clear BPDU errors and I can bounce the port. So I typically like to, it seems like if I bounce the port, it will kind of speed up this process. So I click bounce port and it will automatically go through it. And this can take, once again, a few seconds to maybe a minute or two for me to get a response back. So you can see the port bounce is complete, so it disabled and enabled it. And at this point, I can clear the BPDU errors. So I've unplugged the switch port, because if I clear the BPDU error and I leave the switch in there, obviously it's just gonna get an error and delete or disable the port again. But this is all I have to do is clear that BPDU errors, and within, like I said, half a minute to maybe a minute or two, it'll totally clear everything up, and I now will be able to use that port again for any access type devices, obviously minus any switches. They still will continue to disable the port if we see BPDU on this port. So thanks for watching. That's a really quick way to bounce a port and enable BPDU guard and bounce ports and clear the errors and be able to use that port again if it's disabled from a switch being plugged in, as it should be. So thanks for watching.